Good morning. I live in Tunkhannock, Wyoming County, and as Kim had mentioned, the three biggest counties of production, Bradford, Susquehanna, and Tioga. My county actually borders Bradford and Susquehanna, and now they're shifting all the exploration and the drilling in some of those counties a little bit further east and south into my county, so it's not uncommon for me to see, have to stop at an intersection and see 5 or 6 water trucks go by before I can pull out onto my highway. We're seeing a lot of traffic that comes into that area in our quiet, sleepy town. This area, this part of northeastern Pennsylvania, is very rural. We have a primarily older housing stock. There's minimal new development, and there's very little surplus housing stock. And while the development of the Marcellus shale has really spurred a lot of economic growth in our area and created hundreds of jobs and will continue to create more jobs, what it's done, unfortunately, it's unintentionally put tremendous pressure on the housing supply, particularly the rental market. We've seen rents, as Bill had mentioned, rents are doubling and tripling in the past 3 years. A home that I would have rented in 2005 for about $600 a month will now rent for $1,500 to $2,000 a month, plus utilities. That's a great difficulty for the low and fixed income residents of our region. And unfortunately now what's happening again, it's supply and demand, it's just basic economic principles. Landlords that have had existing leases with long-term tenants that automatically renew at the end of a year, those landlords aren't renewing those leases with local people. They're giving them a 30 or 60-day notice that their lease is not being renewed, and then they'll be able to charge higher rents to the gas workers that are moving here. That's especially challenging for working families, families with Section 8 leases, HUD leases. We're seeing people now, unfortunately, are being moved out of the area. They're having to move now into more urban areas, the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre marketplaces, where the rents are lower and where they're going to be able to find a HUD-approved home for lease. What we're also finding in terms of housing for these hundreds and hundreds of gas workers is companies that are coming in, the drilling companies and many of the other related businesses. They're renting entire hotels, long-term, a year at a time. And construction of new hotels is happening in areas that I never would have imagined in 25 years. My little town of Tunkhannock, about 2,000 people strong, just opened a brand new Comfort Inn. The Hampton Inn is under construction, will be open in the next few months. Who would have thought our little town would have 2 big hotels when we do have other hotels in the region? Another area, too, where we're finding housing is local campgrounds. Campgrounds that have historically only been open from Memorial Day to Labor Day are open year-round. These workers are coming here from out of state, pulling their travel trailer behind them on their pickup truck, and they are setting up and living in campgrounds. Some of the rig workers are only here for a short term, maybe 6 months, 9 months, and so we're finding them in campgrounds. Unfortunately, though, the widespread devastation that we saw with the flooding along the Susquehanna River and the streams that feed it earlier this month have not only wiped out some of those campgrounds where our gas well workers were residing and a lot of rental homes, but it also now has left hundreds, probably thousands, of homeowners without shelter, either temporarily while their homes are being repaired from the flood damage, or for many of them, their homes have been condemned, and now they're going to need shelter also, and that is now putting even more pressure on our housing market, our rental market in the region. I do want to say, though, these companies that have come in, many of these companies have been absolutely wonderful with our communities in a time of need. Many of these companies brought in their workers, they're pumping, they were out there pumping houses and basements a week and a half ago quicker than the fire companies were. They had all that equipment, they were there, they pulled their workers off of the job, off of the well drilling, and we're helping our local communities. been a tremendous asset to our local communities and have been very good neighbors in terms of helping us with community needs. Now, while we're seeing some increases in home sales as a lot of the management level employees relocate to the area, it's not as great as the growing demand for rentals that I've mentioned. For those who are relocating with families, we don't have enough higher-end homes. Due in part, as Bill mentioned earlier, a lot of home sellers have taken their homes off the market to take advantage of the rentals. And they're now renting them for far more than what their monthly mortgage payment is going to be. One of the challenges that we face is to convince local developers to create more single-family, townhouse, and apartment communities for affordable workforce housing. Because the housing demand in this industry is greatest at the development phase, which is when they're drilling the wells and they're laying the pipelines to transport the gas. A lot of local builders are concerned that there could very well be a housing surplus 15 to 20 years down the road. So they don't want to find the problem of overbuilding and then having too much inventory, too much property 15, 20, 25 years down the road. Those building the hotels, though, are a little less concerned about that, hoping that the tourism opportunities that we see in the northern tier will help keep those occupancy levels up after the bulk of the workers have moved on. Many of our realtors are also facing a lack of inventory of land. As Bill had mentioned, it's just not for sale anymore. Land that we oftentimes could sell for hunting and recreational purposes, it's not available. And homes on larger tracts of land as well. The homeowners are holding on to that property. If they've signed gas leases, they've now received that bonus money. Some of them are collecting royalties. They're not selling their property to now retire to the south, to Florida for the winter. They're holding on to their homes and using the cash they're getting from their bonus and their royalty payments to buy that other property in Florida. So many times we would see them sell and move, and now they're holding on to those properties. So again, that's reducing our potential inventory there. We're also finding another challenge in our market when we're representing buyers. Some of these home buyers that are coming into the area, they're returning to their roots. They went away, they went off to college, they worked, and now they're coming back home to raise their families, or they're relocating with other industries. They're now specifically requesting homes that aren't in the areas of gas drilling. And so that has become a challenge because it's very hard to identify that. It's very challenging for agents to obtain accurate information, and it's impossible for us to predict where future drilling is going to occur, where future leases are going to be signed. So again, there's some risk reduction that we need to make sure that we're doing as agents to really qualify that and urge our buyers to seek out that information on their own. I want to also address a little bit of the cultural side of the industry as it's impacting our region. There's been a shift in attitude of our local residents, some of our business owners, home sellers, and realtors. In the southern parts of this country and some of the Midwest and the far west, where the gas drilling has been ongoing for decades, there's a lot of respect for employees, and people are welcomed as a vital part of their communities. And what we're unfortunately seeing is some areas, some people that really are not very welcoming and unfortunately not very friendly. I've always promoted my region as a wonderful area to relocate, and people are always friendly, but we're finding some areas where that's just not the case. As I, this summer, drove a client who was relocating here with her husband who was working in the industry, showing her homes in a neighborhood, and we drove by property after property where there were yard signs in the front yard. No pipeline here. Don't change the zoning from residential to industrial.